Hello students, welcome to the biology class. Today we are going to continue with our chapter photosynthesis in higher plants. In our previous session we discussed about the photosynthesis, its importance and experiment related with it. Today we are going to discuss site and pigments. So photosynthesis takes place in green leaves and other green parts of the plant. Chloroplast, which is the cell organelle present in the walls of mesophyll cells of leaves. So it helps, means chloroplasts help to get optimum quantity of incident light coming from the sunlight. So chloroplast contains a membranous system. It consists of grana, stroma lamellae and fluid stroma. So in this diagram you can see that is a membranous system, means it is having the outer membrane, inner membrane, and then they are having a stroma and the grana. Grana, they are the coin-like structure, the disc-like structure is known as grana. Here you can see that is the outer membrane, inner membrane, then they are having the grana, and the grana they are being compiled to form the thylakoid. So the group of grana of a membrane bound sac that is called as the thylakoid, and that fluids, that is the matrix present in the chloroplast, is your stroma. They also have a ribosomes, they are having the DNA, and chloroplast is also known as semi-autonomous organelle because of the DNA and ribosome. So the chloroplast, they contains the membranous system. It consists of grana, stroma lamellae and the fluid stroma, that is the matrix or the ground substance of the chloroplast. Each granum is a group of membrane bound sac called as thylakoids, and these thylakoids, they contain the leaf pigments. The membranous system traps the light energy and synthesizes the ATP and NADPH. So this is called as the light reaction of the photosynthesis. In stroma, that is the fluid, that is the ground substance, enzymatic reaction incorporate CO2 into the plants for synthesizing the sugar, that is a carbohydrate, which is in turn forms the starch. So it is called as the dark reaction. So this shows that the photosynthesis is divided into two phases. One is the light phase, that is which is being done in the membranous system, which trap the sunlight and synthesize the ATP and NADPH, as you can see in this diagram. So the light reaction means when the light energy is being received by the green parts of the plant, they synthesize the ATP, NADPH, and by utilizing this ATP, NADPH in the stroma, they synthesize the glucose. So that is called as your dark reaction, and this is known as the light reaction, and during the light reaction, O2 is liberated. It does not mean that they occur in the darkness or they are not light dependent. So the pigments involved in the photosynthesis, the pigments are the substances that have ability to absorb the light at the specific wavelength. Chromatography shows the following leaf pigment in chromatogram. So this is the loading line, and this is the separation of the pigments by the paper chromatography. You can see the chlorophyll A, which is bright or blue-green in color, chlorophyll B, that is a yellow-green in color, xanthophyll, that is yellow in color, and carotenoids, that is yellow to yellow-orange in color. Fine. So this chlorophyll B as well as xanthophyll and carotene, they are the accessory pigments which are not directly participating in the photosynthesis, whereas chlorophyll A is known as the main or the chief pigment which receives the sunlight. So what is the function of these accessory pigments? They plays a very important role. So their function is they absorb light at the different wavelength and transfer the energy to chlorophyll A. And they also protect the chlorophyll A from the photooxidation. So first now discuss the absorption spectrum. So what is absorption spectrum? All the photosynthetic pigment, that is your chlorophyll A, B, xanthophyll, carotenoid, they do not absorb the same wavelength of a visible spectrum of the light. A curve obtained by plotting the amount of the light absorbed by the particular pigment against the different wavelength of the light is known as absorption spectrum. Similarly, we are having the action spectrum. So what is the action spectrum? It is the curve showing the actual rate of O2 evolved or CO2 consumed during the photosynthesis against the different wavelength of light absorbed by the same pigment. It may be chlorophyll A, B, xanthophyll or carotenoid. So in this graphs you can see the absorption and the action spectrum coincide closely, showing that the photosynthesis is maximum at blue and red regions of spectrum. Graph also showed that the chlorophyll A is the chief pigment associated with photosynthesis. So this graph is showing the absorption spectrum of chlorophyll A, B and carotenoid. When we plot the graph against the wavelength of the light, absorption of the light of the chloroplast pigments at the different wavelengths and different peaks are being formed, and the maximum photosynthesis takes place at blue and the red region of the spectrum. This is the graph showing the action spectrum of the photosynthesis where the O2 is evolved and CO2 is consumed. So the graph showing the action spectrum superimposed on absorption spectrum of chlorophyll A. So these graphs are very important. Go through them very repeatedly. Next is your photosystem. Pigments are organized, means chlorophyll A, B, xanthophyll and carotenoid. They are organized into two photosystems called as photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. These are named in the sequence of their discovery, that's why it is 1 and it is 2. So each photosystem, there has a chlorophyll that is called as the chief pigment and accessory pigments bounded by the proteins. So this is the light harvesting complex in which we are having the accessory pigments. The reaction center is having the main pigment, that is the chief pigment, that is a chlorophyll A. So when the light falls on that particular pigment, so first it is received by the accessory pigments so that they can prevent the reaction center from the photooxidation. So all the pigments except one molecule of chlorophyll A forms the light harvesting complex, that is LH or antenna. Single chlorophyll A that act as the reaction center. So this is the chlorophyll A which act as the reaction center. So in PS1, the reaction center absorb the light at 700 nanometer and it is called as P700. In PS2, the reaction center absorb the light at 680 nanometer, so called as P680. So the light harvesting, or you can say the photosystem, if it is a photosystem 1, it is absorbing the light at the wavelength of 700 nanometer. These are the accessory pigments which absorb the light. This is the reaction, they get excited, then emit the electrons which is accepted by the primary acceptors, and the further mechanism of photosynthesis takes place. Depends upon the wavelength. If it is 700, then this is called as a PS1 system, and if it is 680, then it is known as PS2 or photosystem 2 or P680. So our next lesson will be on the light reaction, that is known as the photochemical phase, in which we will see the functioning of the system, that is PS1, PS2, the functioning of your chief pigment as well as the accessory pigment, that how the light reaction takes place, how the synthesis of ATP and NADPH takes place, and followed by our dark reaction. Till then, stay home, stay happy. Thank you and have a nice day.